The Boys. And where was I last time when I left off? I'm confused at what the writers were even going for with the gender swap Stormfront. It's a striking look. She's from Portland and has the patented progressive woman haircut, and then turns out to be a concealed racist and fascist. Is that what they were going for? Because looking at all the pieces that they've laid out in the show, that's kind of what I'm getting. But since I wrote that part, I found out more information. So why did they gender swap Stormfront? Well, there was this article in the UK paper The Metro that said, "We gender flipped them in part because we were trying to create Homelander's worst nightmare," he told us, and his worst nightmare to us was a female who wasn't scared of him and tried to steal his spotlight, and because he's such a gaping hole of neediness and insecurity. Another part of it will be revealed as the season goes on. There's some darker sides to Stormfront. I think the point we're making is a lot of hatred these days is packaged in a social media savvy package, and she represents that to a certain extent. Not what an old school version of intolerance looks like, but how it looks today online. We wanted the intolerance to have an attractive face before you realise what it's about. And while I was writing this review, I think I finally understood it, and it's a screw up on every level from the makers of the Boys series. When they gender swapped Stormfront, I think that they wanted to reference the male Stormfront, and that is why they shaved half of her hair in an undercut style that was popular with soldiers in the Wehrmacht in World War II. And they were probably working off of this image of male Stormfront from the comic, with the slight problem that that picture of him was from World War II. He didn't have that haircut in the current year. It'd be a bit obvious. He also dropped the cape with, let's say, a strong theme of 1940s Germany's flag. It also didn't work because of the gender swap, and because women didn't dress like this in 1940s Germany. The clothing for women then was very trad. Instead, in photos, the women of that period were mostly wearing floral dresses or a dirndl. I honestly thought that they were trying to reference Antifa with that look, or an American progressive, or Tilda Swinton, because that's what it looks like to me. All she needs to finish the look is some blue hair dye and a nose ring. Stormfront is probably the best antagonist the show has managed so far, and they've kind of ruined her already. Now, I don't agree with her politics or her stance on race relations, but she's a snappy dresser. That outfit is probably from Hugo Boss, but I do like a femme fatale, even if she's a bit heavy on the fatale. I've dated worse. In conclusion, I could fix her. I watched season 1 of The Boys back in 2019 when it first came out, mostly on the strength of the cast. I like Carl Urban, mostly for the film Dread that was brilliant, and then nobody went to the cinema to watch it, so we never got a sequel. I also really like Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander in The Boys, due to his work on the series Banshee. So if you want some recommendations of things to watch instead of The Boys, try Dread and Banshee. I honestly like the entire cast, apart from the guy playing Huey, whose one job was to be a likeable everyman, and for me, he failed badly at that. So when I started to watch The Boys, I got a few episodes into season 1 and found it interesting enough that I went and read all of the source material. It's kind of like what I ended up doing with Game of Thrones. I watched season 1, got bored of waiting for season 2, and then went and read all of the books. And at first, I was quite impressed with the Boys series because the source material was far from perfect, and if anything, in places in season 1, they made some solid improvements on the source material. But as the series went on, it started to miss the point of the source material entirely. The link between superheroes and fascism is a pretty easy one to make, because within fascist doctrine is the idea of the Superman, deriving from the writings of Friedrich Nietzsche and his 1883 book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He spoke of an idealised Superman with the strength and will to forge a better future for humanity. It carried with it the idea that moral authority derives from strength, and Nietzsche drew a stark contrast between this idealised Superman, superior in morality and strength, and a conceptual last man, ordinary and bourgeois, decadent and nihilistic. And it's easy to see how this next generation of superior humans that Nietzsche envisaged fed into the concept of eugenics. Because if these superior humans are needed to forge the future, maybe they themselves could be created by breeding programs or chemical intervention. And these concepts were co-opted by the then German government. And what is Superman as a character if not superior to regular humanity? Stronger, more just, more moral. And there's something about superheroes that's also clearly anti-democratic. They're unelected and yet still use their vast and superior strength to enact their will against the wishes of elected leaders, or the people, or the laws of the country they're in. So in the Boys comic, there was a deep contempt for superheroes. In the world of the Boys, the superheroes aren't more moral than the average person. They're considerably less so. And this, if anything, is a complete inversion of Nietzsche. The only hero in the Boys comic at the end is the Last Man. And the Last Man is Huey, a Scottish everyman with a heart of gold, made in the image of Simon Pegg. And that's why an older Simon Pegg ended up in the series, playing Huey's dad. And these themes of Nietzsche and fascism are what I got from the original comic. It seemingly had some quite profound ideas behind its crass and punkish veneer, and all that has been cast aside in the series by having Supes as the heroes and relegating Huey to a cheerleader for Starlight. Huey was kind of the hero of the comic in the end, reduced now to a bystander in his own story. The series makes many facile character changes. They also race swapped A-Train, who was Caucasian in the comic and is a black dude in the series. They could have race swapped any character, and they choose to make the black guy the one who runs fast. You know, for anti-racism. Maybe they could have race swapped the Deep instead, from the white guy that he was in the series to the black guy as he appeared in the source material. It's a bit hard to tell from the costume, but yes, the Deep in the comics I'm pretty sure was a black dude who they made white in the series, and I have absolutely no idea why they just didn't keep it as it was. Sadly, Anthony Starr is kind of miscast as Homelander, and it feels a bit harsh to say that because he does a very good job in the role, but the ideal guy for me is already working with Amazon, and for me it's Alan Ritchson, who's currently playing Reacher. But if it came down to a choice between getting more Reacher or having him as Homelander, I'll take the Reacher, please. Everyone who watched Supernatural will have a pretty good idea of what Eric Kripke writes like. Where, in Supernatural, Sam saying, "Dean, we need to talk," happened so often it became a meme. So, with Eric Kripke writing for The Boys, expect lots of forced conflict and plot lines that eventually fizzle out to nothing. And Jim Beaver. Always expect Jim Beaver. So in short, a comic series that was loudly anti-corporate and anti-fascist with a punkish disregard for taste and convention has been sold to a giant corporation, hollowed out and used as a vehicle for a generic message on feminism, toxic masculinity and American partisan politics.
Sorry to interrupt, but there are some policemen here. They say they need to speak to you about irregularities in the pension fund.
I see. Could you make me a cup of tea, please, Stephanie?